welcome to ScreenBlitz, the weekly film and TV show dedicated to giving you all the top news, views, reviews, previews, features, opinions, and more. I'm your host, Grant Burton. You can follow me on Twitter and Instagram at @the_Grant Burton, or you can go to forcedbygrant.wordpress.com for all of my written reviews. If you're watching this on Twitch, get involved in the chat, although I should warn you I'm having internet problems today, so if all of a sudden the stream goes down, I apologise for that. But you can catch up later on YouTube, Monday and Tuesday, and then the full show on Friday. But let's get on with the show, and probably not going to be a long show today. I haven't got any reviews because for some reason I haven't watched any films and I haven't finished any TV shows. It's just kind of the way it's worked out, not deliberate. And we start each and every week with the news. First story. This is a story that proves that if you do horrible, horrible things, you're going to live to regret it. Because Charles Barfield at the playlist says, Kevin Spacey's Billionaire Boys Club posts ridiculously low $618 opening weekend. So, yeah. This is clearly a reaction to the Me Too movement that's been going on. And Kevin Spacey's career is pretty much over now. He's probably going to go to prison at some point. I would like to think he would. But it's a shame about the rest of the cast and crew who worked on this film, because they're quite talented. Taron Egerton's in there, and some other guy whose name I can't remember right now. But this probably isn't helped by the fact that the film's mostly getting negative reviews as well. So, and it should be noted that this film was made before all the accusations against Kevin Spacey came out. So that's why Kevin Spacey's in it. And it doesn't have the big budget that, say, what was it, all the money in the world had, so they couldn't recast him or edit him out because his role was that big. So, another thing is, I haven't seen any trailers for this, I haven't seen any marketing for this or posters. When looking for an image for this, the posters look pretty terrible. So, that might also affect why the film's not doing so well, because no one knows it exists. If I don't know much about it, then chances are no one else will. But yeah, that's that. Kevin Spacey, this I think is his last film. I don't think he'll be doing any more. Danny Boyle exits Bond 25 over creative differences. Rumours suggest that these creative differences were over arguments with Daniel Craig over the casting of the villain. And this is a shame. It's really disappointing because Danny Boyle would have done a pretty cool and interesting James Bond film, but it's not to be. So who's going to replace him? Well, there's lots of names lined up. Edgar Wright seems to be the favourite at the minute, but that's not going to happen. If you think Edgar Wright's going to do a James Bond film, guess again, because Danny Boyle has left this film, and Danny Boyle is like an auteur. So if he goes into a film, he's going to take control, he's going to want things done his way. Edgar Wright is exactly the same. So if they don't get on with Danny Boyle, they're not going to get on with Edgar Wright. And Edgar Wright already has a history of this with Ant-Man, having to drop out of that. So there's also people like Christopher McQuarrie up there being considered, but I don't think Christopher McQuarrie would do it, considering he's just came off doing 2 Mission Impossible films, which aren't that dissimilar from this. And the other name floating around is Christopher Nolan, but I don't think Christopher Nolan will do this. Christopher Nolan himself has said that if he's going to do a James Bond film, he'd want it to be the start of a franchise rather than the end. And Christopher Nolan's probably too busy working on his next film, whatever that is, because he has just released Dunkirk. So yeah, Danny Boyle James Bond film, disappointing that we're not going to see it, but let's move on. Jesse Wade at IGN says a Veronica Mars reboot with Kristen Bell is in talks at Hulu. The original writer and star are in negotiations with Hulu. Warner Bros. And the streaming service have been quietly working on a deal for months, and AW was told that the arrangements would be made so that Bell can come back as Veronica, despite her obligations on NBC's The Good Place. So, I've never seen Veronica Mars. I don't think it got that big a reception here in the UK in terms of an audience. Not so much critically, but I don't even know what channel it was on here in the UK. But then I think it only had like 1 or 2 seasons or something like that. And then of course they done that movie just a couple of years back. So People like the show, that's fine. Good on you. This will be very pleasing to fans. But if Kristen Bell has to navigate around doing The Good Place and doing this, I'd rather her do The Good Place because that's a damn good show. So yeah, as long as it doesn't get in the way of that, I've got no problems with this happening. Next up, The Big Bang Theory is to end with season 12, and it's about goddamn time because wow, this show really bad at times. And here's the thing about The Big Bang Theory. When it started off, season 1 and 2, it was all about geeks and nerds. It was about showing them in a positive light. It was about giving them representation at a time when their representation wasn't being shown much, when they were negatively portrayed on TV. And it's throughout its run, The Big Bang Theory has had its ups and downs, but predominantly it's had its downs. The problem started, I want to say, around season 4, maybe even earlier, and that the show went from being about geeks and nerds to being about taking the mick and taking the piss out of geeks and nerds. The jokes started to come at their expense. Everything was much more like a weird, quirky reference, and all the jokes were like making fun of them for the things they liked, and like portraying them as if they were like awkward and weird, and it just wasn't good. So, also, storylines and humor, very repetitive. If you've seen other Chuck Lorre productions like Two and a Half Men, same sort of thing, although less focused on sex and women and more focused on geek and nerd culture. But yeah, they've run out of ideas and it's time to end it. In fact, the finale for the last season would have been a great place to end it. And the last season actually was alright, I think. It was one of the better ones in recent years. I do watch the show, but most of it, it's like I'm watching it out of hate than because I like it. So, yeah. Big Bang Theory coming to an end next year. Should have been a long time earlier. Final news story. Boris Kitt and Eric Hayden from The Hollywood Reporter says that Death Note sequel is in production at Netflix. It was said to be a sizable success by Ted Sarandos, the chief content officer at Netflix. So, I can't remember this film being that big of a success. I think it got mostly negative reviews. Fans of the original anime were really not happy with it. I watched it, I thought it was just okay, nothing special. Although Willem Dafoe, as the voice of that creature thing, I don't know its name, he was pretty good as that. So I'll give it that. And I'm interested to see where it goes. But yeah, I'm not that fussed about a Death Note film or a sequel. I have seen the original anime as well, and the anime was better. So yeah, Death Note, more of that coming along. So let's move on to trailers, but before I do that, let me remind you that if you're watching on YouTube, I'd really appreciate a subscription. Give me a thumbs up. 100 subscribers gets me a custom URL, makes my channel easier to share and promote. And leave a comment down below, but if it's offensive or upsetting or inappropriate, or if you're just trying to start an argument or a fight, don't bother. I've got better things to do with my time than to give that sort of thing any sort of attention. So, yeah. If you're watching this on Twitch, get involved in the chat. At the end of the show, I will be doing a little hangout, see if we can talk about all the things I have brought up today. But let's move on to the trailers. So I've literally just watched 2 of these trailers right now. The first one is Outlaw King, and it's from the director of Hello High Water. I didn't realize that. Stars Chris Pine, and it's about Robert the Bruce, I believe. And it actually looks pretty good. Netflix, I think, at this point has failed to do a really big hit movie, both in terms of how good it is quality-wise, but in terms of its audience. I know Bright done really well, but the critical reception was very negative, although I actually quite like that film. But this one, I think, actually looks pretty good. Netflix has done good films before, but they usually get less attention than films like Bright or Death Note did. So I'm getting a few little Game of Thrones vibes from this, and what's that film? There's a film, I think it's called Legionnaire, stuff like that. Typical like medieval stuff. I'm a little worried about how familiar and how unoriginal this film might end up being, but it's got a good director. The cast looks really good. Chris Pine, of course, not English. I'm assuming Robert the Bruce was English. I'm not very good at my medieval history, but yeah. So, next trailer, The Man in the High Castle Season 3. So this show, it seemed for a long time that it just vanished. You've done the first 2 seasons. I think it's been 1, maybe even 2 years since the last season. The Man in the High Castle is basically an alternate history show set in the 60s where the Nazis and Hitler won the World War. And it's full of great ideas, a great premise, but often it fails to execute them very well. And the first season suffered from pacing issues. It was really slow at times. It has a severe lack of interest in characters. There's about 2 or 3 in the whole show, and it's a problem when the main villain is the most sympathetic and likable character, because especially when he's a Nazi as well, and you're supposed to really hate this guy, but no, he's actually one of the better characters in it. This trailer though, it looked like they've amped up the action. It looks like they might have a potential budget increase because they're showing a lot more CGI landscapes and buildings and so on and so forth. So yeah, I'm interested in this. Jason Momoa's in there. I think he's an interesting actor. So another thing is it looks like they're really amping up the science fiction element of it. I'm not going to go into spoilers because the science fiction element really comes into play in the second season a bit more. And yeah, it looks like they're going in some really interesting ways with that. So I'm looking forward to this. Comes out October, I think. Might even be next month. Final trailer, Suspiria. So I haven't seen the original Suspiria, so I don't really know what this is about, but watching the trailer just now, it reminded me a lot of Black Swan. I also got a few vibes from Red Sparrow, which was a recent film. It looks like it could potentially be scary. It looks really atmospheric. The cinematography, it looks really interesting and stylish. So yeah, I'm a little interested in this. I don't really know what the story's about. It looks like it's about a ballet dancer with loads of weird goings on, perhaps some odd, quirky characters in there. But yeah, like I said, I haven't seen the original, don't know what it's about. But yeah, I'm interested. So that is it for the news this week. If you liked what you've seen, I'd appreciate if you subscribe to my YouTube channel, give me a thumbs up, 100 subscribers is my goal, share this across social media as well. If you know someone called Tom, tell them I'm talking about them. Tell them to go check it out because I need the viewers. The more viewers I get, the bigger audience I get, the more successful this show gets, and I really, really would appreciate that. So go tell Tom to check this out. If you're watching this on Twitch, I'm about to go into the second half of the show, which is all about South Korean film and TV. After that, I'll be doing a little hangout. You can get involved in the show, join in the chat, and we can have a little hangout. But thanks for watching so far. Now let's move on to the big topic of the week, which is South Korean film and TV. So, South Korean film and TV. The reason I'm talking about this is because last week it was announced that Train to Busan is getting a sequel. And Train to Busan, which I'm about to talk about soon, is a brilliant film. But outside of the mainstream Hollywood and British cinema, which you're probably accustomed to, there are some great national cinemas out there. Japan, China, they've all got their great stuff. Those are just some of the particular ones that I wanted to point out. But South Korea has really been up in its game recently in the past like 5 years, I want to say, and they've been pulling out some really good stuff. So I want to just give them credit for 5 shows and films that I think you should check out because they're really pretty darn good. The first one is on screen right now, and that's The Age of Shadows. This is a spy/war film. It's set, I believe, in the 20s. If you've ever seen like a classic Hollywood noir, it's got vibes of that. Cinematography is brilliant, very atmospheric. You can see from the poster, you get the film is like that. It looks like that. Those are the main characters in there. There's lots of twists and turns. You're constantly guessing about who's a spy, who's a good guy, who's a bad guy. And basically it's about occupied South Korea during the war. And really interesting idea. The only negative I've got about the film is that it's a bit like The Lord of the Rings Return of the King, in that it doesn't really know when to end. So you keep getting these scenes towards the end of the film that are just like epilogue after epilogue after epilogue. And they're not bad, it does make the film drag a little. And I believe the film is almost 2.5 hours long. So it is a long film to begin with. But yeah, really check this out. There's some great acting, great action, and in the poster there, you'll see they're on a train. That's actually probably the best scene in the whole film. I'm not going to spoil it, but if you've ever seen like From Russia with Love, for example, one of the early James Bond films, it's very reminiscent of that. There's a lot of espionage going on, a lot of tension, and it's just a really good film. Check it out. Next up is Train to Busan. I've already talked about it a little. I talked about it a little last week. This is probably one of the greatest zombie movies ever made. It's definitely one of the best in recent years. I would thoroughly, let me try that again. I would thoroughly recommend it if you are into that genre. And this is a film that proves that South Korea can do genre cinema very well. It's not just a typical zombie film though, it actually does something a little interesting and unique. It feels different from what's came before. There's Okay, I'm not sure if you're seeing this, but something has happened to something. I'm not sure if it's recording, I'm not sure if it's streaming. I apologize if it's being interrupted, but I'm going to continue anyway. So, where was I? Train to Busan. It has some big emotional beats, particularly towards the end. There's a moment at the end of the film where it really just gets you right in the heart, and yeah, really well done. Check this out if you like the zombie genre. Next up, this is from the director of Train to Busan. This is Psychokinesis, and again, it's a genre movie. This time, it's a superhero film, and it's not a superhero film like Marvel or DC. It's not based on a comic book or a graphic novel. It's much more down the Hancock route in that it's an original story with original characters, and it's surprisingly funny. It takes a little farcical, comical approach to the superheroes. It's basically about a guy who gets the power of telekinesis and psychokinesis. He can move things with his mind, but he has to do weird jigs with his body in order to get accurate results. So if you like superhero films but you want something a little different, I recommend you try this out. The story is a little generic. It is a typical superhero story. Okay, something else has happened to OBS. I don't know if this is recording. I don't know how well this is going. Again, I apologize if you're having problems watching this. So I'm going to continue. And next film. Oh yeah, before I go on, Psychokinesis, great special effects as well. I don't think it's a big budget film by any means, but it really does do a good job of tackling a superhero genre on a smaller scale. This is a TV show called Stranger. You can get this on Netflix here in the UK. And when I was watching this, it reminded me a lot of Sherlock. The main character is basically Sherlock Holmes. He's got a weird deductible ability. He lacks emotion. That goes into backstory as to why he is the way he is. But yeah, it's a really good TV show filled with twists and turns. There's a lot of surprises. The characters are really interesting. The story is really intriguing and fascinating. I'd recommend this. It's a crime story. A guy goes and finds someone has been killed, and then he's on that case. Lots of twists and turns, very convoluted. It's hard to give this show a good explanation simply by talking about it. I would recommend you give the first episode a go. And like a lot of South Korean and foreign TV shows, the episodes are like an hour to an hour and a half long, so they are hefty, full-on episodes, almost feature length at times. Final one. This is a bit of a cheat because this is a South Korean Czech Republic co-production, and it's a brilliant film, but it's one that's been mired in a little bit of controversy because outside of the United States and some other countries, you can't get a hold of this film. In the UK, the film has never been released, so I have seen it. It is brilliant. I'm not going to say how I saw it, but if you can somehow get a hold of this, do it, because it's brilliant. It stars Chris Evans. Is it Chris Evans? Yes, Chris Evans. And basically, it's a futuristic, post-apocalyptic science fiction film about the survivors of society living on a train. The people at the back of the train are poor, the people at the front of the train are rich and wealthy and live pretty well off, until the people at the back of the train get pretty annoyed at the conditions they're living in and they decide to revolt. So that's basically what the film's about. The people at the back of the train try to get to the front, and to the guy running things up right at the front in the engine room. So if you want to watch this, I believe you have to go to America. It is available there. It might be on Netflix in America. If you're in the UK, I don't know how you're going to do it. You're going to have to import a foreign copy of this or get it illegally, which I would not advise. I'm not a big supporter of that sort of thing. But you can import an Italian version, I believe, but I don't know if it has English subtitles, because this is a South Korean film. Despite the fact it's got English actors in there, there is a lot of native South Korean language in there as well. I don't think it's just South Korean either. I think there might be some Japanese in there as well. But yeah, really great film, great action scenes, very good use of lighting and atmosphere. As the film progresses, as the main characters get from the rear of the train to the front, it brightens up, much more colourful as it goes on. Really well done. There is a TV show adaptation of it being done, and it's also based on a graphic novel. So if you can't get a hold of the film, try getting a hold of that maybe. And yeah, if you're really annoyed that you might not be able to get a hold of this, blame Harvey Weinstein. It's basically his fault. I'm not going to go into how that is, but basically he wanted the film to be one thing, the director refused, so Harvey Weinstein basically screwed him over. And that's all I've got for this week. Just want to briefly talk about one other thing that happened last night, and that's that Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3 officially got delayed. Shouldn't come as a surprise to anyone, really. This film wasn't going to be released on time, especially since it was meant to go into production early next year. It hasn't got a writer anymore, it hasn't got a director anymore. I don't know if they're still working on James Gunn's script or not, and the actors, that Dave Bautista might not be in the film anymore, I don't know. But yeah, Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3, going to be a little while off. And that's it, that's all I've got. I'm going to get into the chat, but I don't think the stream's working. But if you are watching this on Twitch, sorry if you've had some problems. If you're watching this on YouTube, leave a comment down below. Get involved with the show, share this across social media, help me build my audience, subscribe, that's a must do. I really want your subscription. 100 subscribers gets me a custom URL, makes it easier to promote and share. And give me a thumbs up. I'm Grant Burton. You can follow me on Twitter and Instagram at @the_Grant Burton, or you can go to forcedbygrant.wordpress.com for all of my written reviews. This show might be a bit of a mess. I don't know how much of it's recorded, but I'm going to go in and see what there is there, see if I can salvage something. So, thanks for watching. Until next time, I'm out.